list. We're just pushing up on 5 after. We want to get going, Frederick?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for my meeting notes to load.
Let me also get the share up.
It may be time to truncate the meeting notes and archive the
older notes.
the last couple of years.
Yeah, this does eventually get to be a thing.
Cool. Okay, so welcome to the Network Service Mesh Working Group. We have this meeting every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, and we also hold a PR review weekly on Tuesday at 7:30 a.m., half hour before this call. We also participate in a number of other groups, including the CNCF Cloud Native Network Function Working Group, which occurs every Monday at 1600 UTC, and the CNCF Tag Network, which occurs every first and third Thursday of every month at 9 a.m. Pacific. All the information is in the agenda. We also have a couple of upcoming events. We have Cloud Native Telco Day, which is co-located at KubeCon EU. The CFPs for that are closed. We also have Open Source Summit. The CFPs are open until mid this month. So we have about 2 more weeks. With that, we don't have any special announcements, but we do have some more stats from the social media community team. So they have added 3 additional followers and are following 7 additional people and have sent out 3 messages. So there's been a bit of, in terms of messaging, you'll find that a lot of organizations will be slow for the next couple of weeks. With that, we also reposted all this information on LinkedIn as well. In terms of the agenda, we have NSM version 1.3, which is 60 days from the 1.2 release. So feature freeze is on March 18th. And the first release candidate is set for the 25th, and the release is set for April 2nd, not April 1st. So we have the roadmap review. Should we jump into that?
We can. This is actually still, we just realized in the issues PR meeting, the roadmap review, yes, this is attempting to be somewhat coherent. So this is sort of a high level things we're looking to get out on the 1.3 release. If there is a thing you care about that you don't see here, please speak up. We would like to add it. But this is the stuff that we were sort of aware of so far. We can go ahead and update the website for other things. So again, if there are features that folks are wanting to get out in the 1.3 release that are not here, that they're trying to get out, speak up here, ping me offline, push a PR, any number of options to get your stuff included. Sound good?
If there is somebody you know who is not in the meeting who would be interested in reviewing these as well, please send it to them. So we'll make sure the link is on the agenda. But if there's someone missing that you know of who can give us some valuable feedback on this roadmap as well, please circulate. That way we can get that information as quickly as possible and make sure that we're focusing on the right set of things and from a priority perspective.
Cool. Anything else there? Okay. Yeah, so mostly just a reminder to folks of the cadence of things.
So the mutually aware NSEs to overlap IPAM and roots. Who added this one?
So I think I may have added this because in the issues PR meeting, Denise had suggested it. So I know we have a bunch of folks in the call who have interest in this because they, you can see where we actually had, this is something that came up around being able to solve some of Ericsson's use cases. The thing we sort of had settled into at the end of this was to drive it from the client side. and allow an environment variable to the client to basically say, look, these network services should be considered to be mutually aware, and therefore don't include each other's exclude prefixes when you send requests to them. So I wanted to make sure that this actually was likely to solve the problem that the folks at Ericsson had. And then the second thing that had come up in discussion during the issues PR meeting was, do we want this to be a simple list of, do we want this to be a simple list of, of service URLs, or do we want to also be able to include regular expressions in it? So do the folks who are looking to consume this have opinions on either of those aspects?
Not sure if everyone involved is here today, but yeah, basically, what would the regex add in this case?
So for the sake of argument, let's say that you decided that, because essentially the NSM awareness groups are sort of queued up to be essentially a list of lists of URLs, where each list is basically a set of things that are supposed to be mutually aware. And you could imagine how this might be easier if you were to provide it might be convenient to be able to provide regular expressions for this potentially, so that you didn't have to manually enumerate all the things. So I mean, I guess the first question is, does providing an environment variable to the client that looks like this seem like it's going to allow you to get what you're looking for in a reasonable way?
I would think so. I think but I also think what is suggested here is probably way over the top what we actually need for our use cases. But I think Fredrik also had some ideas that it could be used for other things as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're trying to get it in front of. Good.
Yeah, I do. If I have a choice between a regex and a not a regex, I'll almost always choose the not a regex unless the regex is really required. We could always add a regex later on as well if we really need to. So if there was a choice between one or the other, I just you know how simple. Complex, yeah, and you know how complex regexes can get as well. And I worry that some people get regex happy, and I understand the reason why, because it is a very powerful tool, but it does concern me if we give something that can give that much flexibility when there's not a need for it.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that we don't ever do it, but I think we should wait until we see a use case there.
Yeah. No, I can see that. It is one of those things where, yeah, there's the old joke. Hang on, this is actually probably exactly the right thing to share for this moment. 1 second. There's an old XKCD cartoon. That probably captures this.
That works. Yeah, I'm not saying that the regex idea is a bad idea at all. Like I think that the regex is an excellent idea. Just want to be careful because I have seen this play both ways. So,
and what are the ones that I haven't thought through myself is, if you're expressing a URL, are you going to trip across regex things where now you can no longer express a URL without proper escaping? And I literally haven't thought that all the way through.
Let me put it this way as well. A lot of there's two primary examples I can think of. They're still finding bugs in the mail regex with like what is an email address, that is in the RFC that gets updated on occasions. And the second one is a lot of the issues around the log4j as to why it was so difficult to remove was because of escape patterns from that were introduced, not necessarily by regex, but something that was similar to it. So that does produce a lot of opportunities there. So anyways, the main point here is I would opt for the simpler one. It'll be easier to test, and we'll quickly find out if people have use cases for regexes, and if they do, then we can try to approach it in a way that allows people to use regexes. But at the same time, very carefully caution them against the complexity of going overboard on it, which we won't be able to control, but we can set as the best practice.
Yep, sounds good. Did that answer all the questions that you had, Denise, on this? Or Nikita?
Yep, totally.
Nikita's working
Thank
on it.
you. Yep, I got it. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll try to make your life easier with this as well. So cool. So next up, we have policy-based routing.
Yeah, so I carried this forward. This has been discussed several times. There's been discussion on the actual issue itself. And the net was there was a sort of a protocol port need to be optional, and they're not currently optional. And what this really comes down to is being able to, so there are two sets of things. One is being able to handle any for port 0. And so for the ports, this is easy because the TCP UDP folks had the foresight to reserve port 0. So nobody actually uses port 0. So if you can just interpret port 0 as any, and that's a very common interpretation. Unfortunately, protocol is a problem because protocol 0 actually has, IP proto 0 has a defined meaning. I don't know what they were thinking. I am actually entirely mystified that this is a thing, but if you go look.
What is the definition, by the way? What is proto 0?
Hang on.
If you don't know that, that's okay too. I can.
Oh no, I do know. It is the IP6 hop by hop option, and this is the one that just mystifies me because it's currently listed in RFC 88. This was done so long after TCP that I don't understand how nobody knew this was a terrible idea. So I'm just really highly confused how this happened. But I'm going to stop being bitter now because it doesn't matter.
I was expecting like a super ancient protocol, so yes.
Yeah, like it's like, oh, we assigned protocol 0 to ChaosNet. Like I could totally see that. Everybody was young, there was a lot of alcohol involved, but no, this was done by older people with a lot of alcohol involved. But so I think the discussion that we had was then having a protocol to indicate that your proto should be the right behavior. The one thing I did want to get to the center of, because this gets to a bit of API design, is do we want port any, proto any to be the default behavior? And by default behavior, I mean, if I don't set anything, do I want that to communicate port any, proto any?
Lionel, are you here? I think we were mostly discussing the ports part, right?
Right. Yeah, in our use case, I think, yeah, proto is not that important to have it as an optional parameter, but it was, our discussion was mostly about the ports. And
I do recall you had some interest in SCTP though, right?
yeah, we have interest in SCTP.
Yeah, we mentioned in our example SCTP, yes.
Yeah. So I guess the underlying point is, I feel like the right behavior is if you want to match a particular port or a particular protocol, you need to say so. Otherwise, we're just going to match any port and any protocol. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, it makes sense.
Okay, good. Because
So
that
one of
gets to
the
sort of how. Mhm.
one of the questions that I wonder, and I'm if I recall properly in Go, it should be easy to do this with the APIs, where if something's missing, that it'll provide us with not the integer primitive, but it'll provide us with with a way to tell that it was an empty field as opposed to something that's there. So I don't know if it was a pointer to an integer, or whether there was a second field like an error or
So
something similar.
in gRPC, I believe they just don't send the 0 values, and so it gets interpreted as a 0 value. So if you've got a proto that's an int or a uint16, then you'll get a uint16 0 valued. And the reason I'm getting to this, the reason I wanted to make sure we got this net right, is that it has to do with semantically how you semantically define this new parameter, because the new parameter obviously needs to be a bool, but the bool needs to be such that its false value means that you should not be interpreting proto 0 as the IPv6 hop to hop, which gets to the correct naming of the variable and the correct semantic meaning of it. And I just wanted to make sure I wasn't completely in left field in how I was thinking about it.
Yeah, actually, this is what we discussed. But during the day, we had a meeting with Johan, Leif, and the others here, and the question came up because this boolean is coming from the request that I phrased in the issue that we would like to be backward compatible. That's always my request, but it's came up. What if we do another way? If there is any way to make this the port and protocol, but mainly the port because of the range, if we would change it to string, what would happen that way? That case, because right now I think Ericsson was the only requestor of this interface here, and right now it's not really useful for them.
So I mean that's absolutely an option. But basically, I think fundamentally at the end of the day, the real question is, are we going to break backward compatibility for this part of the API? And if we are going to break backward compatibility for this part of the API, then what would we make that API look like? And string is certainly a valid suggestion for it. I'm not entirely sure that string is the only valid suggestion for it. I would actually have to think a little bit, because I've been trying very hard to think in terms of backward compatible approaches. But string is certainly an option, because as you said, then it becomes very easy to say, well, okay, we've been interpreting the string as an integer, but maybe we should interpret it as allowing the value any to be acceptable. But then you still come back to, what do you do about the 0 values? And you want to make sure you get that correct, because I don't want to have to set a value for the average case behavior, right? And I think the average case behavior is any here.
And that's why
I was about to say, if we have strings, then it would be the natural choice, if you don't want them to be taken into account, would be to leave the string empty.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of my thought. I mean, because essentially you've got two sets of behaviors that you've mentioned, one of which we're talking about here, which is allowing to match against any. And so the first set of behaviors is that one. The second one would be port ranges. And
I think there also could be at least a theoretical other value or setting you would like to have, because in my view, any means that you actually would like, say, a port field to be present, but you don't care what the content is. Whereas if you specify it's as an empty stream, you will not even consider the port field as such. Do you see the difference?
No, I do see the difference in principle. In practice, though, that sort of so only certain protocols have ports. So if you want to indicate that you want something that has a protocol, then yeah, and I think part of the attraction of doing strings is it makes it very easy to do ranges for both of these.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so,
sure.
it makes it easy to do ranges for these. It gives you a 0 value for the variable that is not interpretable as a particular port number, which is nice because then you could interpret the 0 value string as any. It also ends up being nice because now you can just break this up into a list of integer ranges, which is an easy thing to parse.
Yes.
So, here's what I would suggest. Could somebody get, before the end of the day, your time, proposing something shaped like this into the issue so that we can actually push the conversation forward in this direction? Because if in fact folks are comfortable with this particular breakage, then I'm actually happier with this idea, frankly, because as we sort of move down the road from here to doing port ranges, now we're suddenly into a world where we've got all kinds of ugly warts on the API because of an initial port choice.
Right. So, I mean, we're always talking about backwards compatibility, but I mean, if everyone agrees that a change is good, then I mean, I don't see an issue with it.
Okay. So let's go ahead. If someone from your side could get that proposal on the string bit into the issue by the end of the day, because we are running a very tight schedule time-wise, right? We've basically got a little more than 2 weeks left on the feature side of this. So we do need to get this settled fairly quickly. So if you could engage aggressively on the issue to get this proposed and we'll get it back and forth, it should be something we can get done. Sound good?
I can put it in the issue. Yep.
Well, I'm actually, let me actually throw this actually one step further out. Is there someone on your side who could pick up doing this? The good news is, the existing code should make it very easy to figure out where to make the changes to make this a thing. Is that something that someone could engage in a timely manner from your side to get done?
I think we already started discussing it with Laszlo. Maybe he will be the one. And
oh, excellent!
Yeah.
Laszlo does good work. He's very thorough.
Yes. Unfortunately, he was ill, but hopefully he will recover soon. So I hope
so too.
So is this required today? Because it's getting a bit late for most of us here.
If at all possible, it would be really good. I suppose it could bleed in tomorrow.
Right.
When I sort of say today, it's more of a let's get this done with a sense of urgency and not tick it over across a week, because we are. It just occurred to me we are now in March, and so we have till March 18th before feature freeze.
Right.
So. Okay. Cool.
So before tomorrow morning, your time, you will have an answer.
Right. Although it should be pointed out that my time zone is probably the least important time zone in the entire community right now. I think there's a locus of folks in Europe. So
we'll try to address it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and hopefully it's something Laszlo can pick up because, as I said, he does really good work, and he's particularly good at sort of finding the places to make changes. And this one hopefully should be pretty obvious. So, okay, cool.
Okay, so we got NSM upgrade, and is there anyone using Kubernetes deployment upgrade strategies for NSM components?
So this was, I think, your topic, Denise, that you wanted to bring up?
Yep.
I'm going to provide the background.
We are currently thinking about NSM healing in external VPP cases working together. And we went to see NSM with Calico stably working in upgrade cases. And I know that we have guys who worked with with NSM upgrading. How are folks upgrading NSM? Are you using deployments? Are you just using deployments, Kubernetes update feature, or something else?
We are using Helm charts.
Right. So I guess the real meat of the question, I think, comes down to do the forwarder pod names change during upgrade? Because we're trying. Good.
Okay, I see. Forward the pod names change during upgrade. Okay, I will check it.
Yeah, and just to give you the background on why that matters, as we're looking, so in the normal case where we don't have an external VPP, where the VPP is in the same pod as the forwarder, then obviously if you upgrade the forwarder, the VPP goes away and gets brought back. So no harm, no foul. As we're looking at the external VPP case, we're trying to decide whether we should tear down the connections when you pull down when the forwarder gets taken away. But the external VPP is going to survive the forwarder being upgraded. And so the real question is the down chain part of the connection reusable or not? And the down chain part of the connection being reusable may depend very much on the persistence of the forwarder names. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think I can talk to the guys and check it.
Yeah, that's kind of why I got down to the sort of mechanical question, because I think the mechanical question is very easy to check, right? And is do the forwarder pod names change during an upgrade on for the same node? And we think it's probably true they will, but we're really curious, and we thought it would be good to ask the folks who actually do the upgrade. Cool.
Okay, so I think we can also consider Helm upgrade. How is it working under the hood?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this still is the fundamental question about that we're trying to resolve.
Yep.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I can easily check it with the guys. So Richard was the one who presented the upgrade details previously, so he will be, or his colleagues will be easily answer it.
Cool.
I will check with them.
Could you also share results on our NSM dev channel? I mean, results.
Yeah, NSM dev is probably a good place to strike out the conversation when you get an answer for that. So thank you, please.
We should also consider there is the network service mesh operator on the operator hub, and we should make sure we do not neglect that.
Yeah, we're starting to actually get some more involvement there, and I actually should reach out and see if they're wanting to line up for the 1.3 release as well, because we're starting to get some forward progress.
Yeah, and as a reminder, the initial contact there, and we can see if he's still if he still has time, was Alexander Meneses.
And he's actually the one who's picking it up and working on it. So
okay, perfect.
Yeah, we've been involved a little bit from here as well.
Excellent. Awesome. I think we've hit the end of the agenda, Frederick.
I think so too. Is there anything else that anyone would like to discuss? I see the one comment was you posting the link, so I'm not hearing any other agenda items. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time, and we will speak to you all again at the same time next week. Take care.